Good evening. The purpose of this meeting is to conduct the business of the Gettysburg Area School District. Public comment is welcome, and issues will be referred to the appropriate board, committee, or administrator. Comments will be summarized in the official board minutes, which will be made available by contacting the business office. Please take a moment to silence your cell phone and other electronic devices. As a friendly reminder to board members, we have a new mic system. Everybody's muted by seeing red. You have to press down, see green, move the mic towards you, and please mute afterwards because they are extremely sensitive. Dr. Lay, all members of the board are present this evening. Would everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Number 3, notices and communications. I understand there are not any, which will move us to citizens' participation. Dr. Moyer.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have one member of the community that's asked to address us this evening, Mike O'Brien. Mike, did I pronounce your last name correctly?
You did. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do I need to do anything with this mic, or is it on?
It should.
You can just move close to it.
Okay.
Yeah, it should
Thank
be
you.
on, sir.
Thank you. I've been thinking about what I heard at the September school board meeting about the HVAC renovations, which are on the agenda for approval for tonight. And here are some of my takeaways. First, there's been no significant problems or failures with the HVAC at any of the locations. The only rationale for the renovations is the age of the systems. Several other not related work projects are also in the plan for both schools, including re-roofing both elementary schools, ripping out and replacing ceilings and some walls, installation of LED lighting, making the lights smart lighting that will automatically adjust based on the amount of natural light that comes in the windows, and replacing wired internet with Wi-Fi. As one of the people that will have to pay for this work, I have got a number of observations and questions, and after reviewing minutes of the facilities committee meeting and the school board meetings, didn't find many answers. First, it appears that there's no cost-benefit analysis that was considered about waiting until we actually have problems with the HVAC rather than replacing them based simply on age. Why not wait until we're starting to have some repair bills? Second, why are the schools getting new roofs? Again, are there any problems, any leaks? Or is this, again, also based simply on the age of the roofs? Third, I don't understand why ceilings and walls need to be ripped out. Even if replacing the chillers and the compressors, et cetera, is necessary and a good idea, are we replacing the ductwork? If so, why? Fourth, replacing incandescent and fluorescent lights with LEDs, great idea. I'm doing that at my own house. But when I do that, I replace a bulb or, if necessary, a fixture. I don't rewire the entire house to do that. It sounds like that's what we're doing. Fifth, smart lights sound pretty cool. But the question I have is, do we know that they actually work? If they aren't proven and tested technology, and we know that the teachers will like them, I don't have any trouble at all visualizing a teacher that says, hey, too much light near the windows, not enough back here in the other areas away from the windows. I don't like this, and overriding the system. And related to that, how much do these smart lights cost? If it's a few dollars a room, sure, no big deal. If it's a few $100s a room or more, why are we doing that? Simple on-off switches have worked for decades. They're cheap, and they're probably already in the room. Smart lights, I don't think, may not be worth whatever we pay for them. And number 6, as far as going Wi-Fi, fine idea. No problems with that at all. But back to ripping out walls and ceilings. If part of the rationale for doing that is replacing the wired internet access with Wi-Fi, what's the problem with leaving an Ethernet or a Cat5 cable in the wall? They're not doing any harm. So please don't spend my money ripping out walls to replace a cable. It's not causing a problem. Bottom line is that I can't help feeling, after looking at the minutes of the committee meetings and the boards and what little detail has been available, that nobody has taken a hard look at the $34 million proposal to separate what needs to be done from what can be done with that kind of money, with that big chunk of money. The apparent absence of any statement of work or requirements documents leaves me feeling like this is what's, hey, Train, we've got $34 million that we got to spend. What can you do for us? To use an analogy, it's like the district needs a sedan. How do we taxpayers know that you're not buying a Lexus when a simple Corolla would do the job and meet the requirements? The answer is we don't. This comes on the heels, unfortunately, of the board approving yet another tax increase this year, in spite of having budget surpluses far in excess of the statutory limits. The way this proposed facility upgrade is being handled indicates that, again, nobody is questioning need to have versus, gee, wouldn't that be nice to have? With the exception of Mrs. Hodges' no vote on the budget and Ms. Meyer's questions about the construction, nobody seems to be trying to look out for the taxpayers. I asked the board for two things. First, before you approve this project, make sure everything in it makes sense for the taxpayers and is not a gold-plated boondoggle for the contractors. Just because it's legal to do the contract this way, just because it's easy, and because it's in a 5-year plan, doesn't mean that we need to do it. Look at what we need versus what's, gee, that's the easy thing to do, and just rubber stamp and move on. And second, on the general budget, please start now looking at the next year's budget. Require the administration to present to you at least 3 alternatives for 2 plans. One, a 0 tax percent increase, and second, a 2% tax rate cut. Be clear that you will not support another tax increase. Start sorting out must-have versus need-to-have. And do it early enough so that if you're presented with basically very undesirable, not realistic proposals, you've got time to get into the weeds, to look at the details, to surgically remove fat, and to start having some hard discussions about which programs need to stay, maybe even need to increase, and which others can be reduced or just eliminated because they're, gee, really nice to have, but it's not worth another tax increase, more pressure on the taxpayers, more sheriff's auctions for property because people can't pay their property taxes anymore. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mike.
That brings us to routine approvals.
Mr. President, before we vote on our routine approvals, I just wanted to make sure that I communicate to my fellow board members and to the public that my vote on these will be a no, but specifically for expenditures. There are...
Excuse me, I'm going to allow you, but we don't have a motion yet.
Oh.
So when we go under question, we have routine approvals.
That's fine.
5.1 through 5.10.
Actually, Mr. President, I would like to make a request. Is it possible to pull 5.3, the approval for PSBA slate of candidates, as a separate line item?
Yes. 5.3 will be removed from the agenda and voted on separately by the board. That leaves us with the remaining routine approvals intact with the exception of 5.3. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Question, Amy Beth?
Yes, I just wanted to make sure that I clarified so that everyone understood that my no vote for this was specifically on expenditures. After an unnecessary tax increase, I found it difficult to review or even approve of such things as lunch, Montezuma's, Labella's, the list goes on and on for expenditures, along with P cards that our district distributes. And I wanted to make sure that I made sure that I clarified that I do not support that type of spending.
Additional question?
I have some additional comments I'd like to make, and earlier today, I did send Belinda an email asking for some clarification on some of the transactions that are on this. And while some of these transactions were absolutely acceptable, I have to agree with Amy Beth that we're feeding staff, and this is not a for-profit business. And I realize that it's something nice to do, but I'm not interested in paying for lunches on the taxpayer dime. I'm just not. Additionally, I did have two other questions that I did fail to ask Belinda. One of them was for the sprinkler company. It says change order for $113,871.27. Is that actually a change order, or was that something else? And then there was another one for Myco Mechanical, and this one says change order number 8 for $116,583.05. So, are we getting change orders?
They
Or-
must have been pay applications. I had to look at, see what you're looking for, but I don't recall any change orders that large.
Well, I'm just, because it does say change order, so that's why I'm
Oh,
like,
I'm not
what is
disagreeing
this?
with that, that's what I'm saying, I'd have to look at what you're looking at.
And there was one other thing. I noticed that we paid AV Solutions the $90,000. Back in May, there was a bill for AV Solutions for $14,383.95. It was for a video wall. Is that for the TVs in here, or was that for something else? Does anybody know?
That's for something else.
Okay, just making sure.
I think we have to
Sorry,
have our
that
mics
was-
on for the public that's
Yeah.
watching this.
I apologize. That response for the video wall was for the high school.
Okay, just making sure. And that's all I have.
I just have a clarification. Belinda, maybe you can help me, because this is the second or third time P cards have come up. And I'm not getting into individual expenses, but I don't want it to be left hanging out there, something that's a little greater or not greater, or to what level. It's my understanding the P cards could be, for example, FBLA does fundraisers within the high school. They would have a P card. So if they decided from their golf tournament that they wanted to send their kids to nationals and they supply the meal, it would be on the P card, it would show up on our expense, but it would not be taxpayer money. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's just one example because they're doing fundraising. So of course we're receiving revenue, which we're offsetting the expenditures. So in the end, it's supposed to be a net effect. But we still process all checks. You'll see all checks on the statements because we submit all funds. So even though it's a fundraising account, you will still see a check. And some of these items are fundraising supplies that was purchased through the fundraising effort. And also for the P card. So P cards are issued throughout the entire district. Several people have them. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but P cards are a method of procurement. And we also receive rebates from using those P cards. So annually, every year, we'll receive a rebate check returned to us from the utilization of P cards. P cards is to the advantage of the user, simply because it's to make the process a little faster. Rather than issuing a PO being held up in the system for approval and processes, the P card can be used to purchase. All the transactions that we review, and we do review them, multiple people, it's a segregation of duties requirement. Auditors know this and provide this to us and review our procedures. But all of those charges are reviewed. The P card transactions, which you see, are already done. They're already after the fact, and they are in compliant with their budget. So many of the buildings have budgetary dollars associated with it. For example, for example, would be food for the beginning of the staff for the year. They've been doing that annually, maybe not so much in COVID, but they have a budget for food underneath the principal's account. Each school has one. So it's something that they have regularly have done. So at the point of you seeing these transactions that has already occurred, simply because, one, they've been given the authority through the budget process, and two, they have a procurement card that they can make these purchases. And then we're posting those payments and so forth to the budget. Where to stop that particular setup is during the course of the budget, where when we're doing building of our budget for the next year, the decision would be no food for anyone. So therefore, that would have to be shared out with the administration, and of course, then they would take a look at their budgets. We don't typically, the business office doesn't typically cut the administrator's budgets. They're responsible for their own. So if that is a directive, of course, from the board, then we take that back to the administration, and then they'll submit their budgets absent that type of service providing for the staff. A lot of the times the food is for during fundraising events, but at all times the accounts that are being charged and for the services that are being done are reviewed and processed. And if there's any questions associated with them, we return them to the administrator, and they're responsible for providing the information.
I was past the P card, but I appreciate, and individual board members may have questions on expenditures, and that absolutely is their right, and that's something that we will focus on. It was the P cards that were confusing to me because it was reported in the paper, budget processes before, and it left the impression out there that it was running rampant through the district, and they were just throwing P cards around and spending money when in fact it was actual fundraisers, not taxpayer money. So there is a distinction, and I believe Amy, Beth, and Michelle are talking about something a little different. But the P cards, I wanted to.
It's not a credit card. That was misunderstanding.
Okay, not a credit card, but the money is not taxpayer money. Is my point.
Right.
Okay. Any additional questions on the routine approvals with the exception of 5.3?
I have a question on 5.10 for human resources recommendations. I know that Mr. Hoffman will be retiring as of, I think it said December or something. But I happen to notice that his job posting has already been made available. Is that common practice that we post a job before we accept his retirement or resignation, or?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, we get a jump on posting it to eliminate time that might occur between the individual leaving and a new person coming on. So when we post it as anticipated, knowing that it could change.
Okay, so next question, follow up. Do we need to have an assistant director of facilities? Is that necessary at this point? Only because, we've got, 5 buildings? And I'm just asking because the previous buildings and grounds directors did not have an assistant. So I'm asking, now we've hired somebody else at $65,000 as an Act 93 employee. Is that necessary?
Yeah, we currently plan to replace that role. And obviously, a couple years back, whenever we created the role, we had a couple major building projects coming up, one being the high school. Now, quite possibly, we're talking about 2 elementary positions. And if you recall, we eliminated a supervisor of custodians role whenever we created the assistant director role and placed that within that role.
So maybe the answer is to go back to the supervisor of custodians as opposed to hiring another Act 93 employee. That would be my suggestion.
It could be. We just don't think so. So we posted it.
I mean, in all honesty, facilities is what I do. That's what I do for a living. So I understand the whole thing. But, I mean, what I hear you telling me is our director of facilities is so busy with the construction project that he can't handle custodial grounds and maintenance. And that's why we have to have somebody else. But don't we pay capital management as the project manager?
I mean, this is the director of facilities and assistant director. I would recommend that whether we had projects or not. I mean, the projects just exacerbate the need for it, in my opinion. It's an administrative recommendation, but the board can obviously do as it wishes.
But that is not an item we're voting on this evening,
No,
correct?
It is not.
Okay,
It's not
okay.
anything that's up. It's just,
Nope.
I went into it because I noticed that his job was posted already, and I'm like, well, do we often post jobs before we accept the retirement? That was my original question.
Yes, to answer that question, yes, we do.
Any additional question? Hearing none, roll call. Jeremy? Yes. Michelle?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Timon?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Amy Beth?
No.
Al?
Yes.
And I vote yes. That brings us to 5.3. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Question? Hearing no question, roll call. Amy Beth?
Yes.
Michelle?
No.
Jeremy?
No.
Mike?
No.
Tim?
No.
Ryan?
No.
Timon?
No.
Michelle?
No.
I vote yes. Oh, Al. I'm sorry, Al. Sitting right beside you. Al?
No. Thanks.
Items for board action, 6.1, the approval of facilities improvement project, HVAC renovation projects at James Getty Elementary and Lincoln Elementary School. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Tim, did you make a motion?
Yes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Question?
I actually have 2 questions. So this is for Belinda, I think. So I think it was in a September meeting, we talked about this a little bit, and you mentioned about some of the funding. And you said there was approximately $5 million left over in savings from when we did the high school HVAC renovation project, and that was collecting some interest. Question I had was, is that $5 million that's left over, could that be used for other projects, like for maintenance, like specifically for like the HVAC for Lincoln or James Getty's if it needed repair?
Yes, the short answer, it was written in the bond documents that it can be any capital-like project outside of the normal project that we were doing.
Okay, and my follow-up question is, you mentioned that there was approximately $2.1 million from ESSER money that would be available to put towards this project. Do you know what the deadline is for applying for or using that ESSER money? I was trying to do some reading, and I thought that I read it was 2024, but I couldn't find anything definitive.
That is correct on the deadline. Everything must be bought, paid for, and installed by June of 2024 to process and finalize that grant.
Okay, thank you very much.
So, Belinda, if we don't vote yes on this, or say this votes no, and maybe Josh, this is more of a question for you. If this goes back to the table to answer questions further, more, what does that do for our timeline, and where does that put us?
If we don't get action today, indications from Train are that we will not have design complete to the point where they can make equipment selections and therefore get the order placed before they take a price increase. It'd be sometime shortly after January 1st, from what I understand from them.
They give you an inclination of what that price increase is going to be?
No. No, the last price increase was 18% on equipment.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Belinda, what's the yield information that was discussed? If you could go over that again for me, please.
Sure. So the yield information, when dealing with projects, you have 3 years to spend the funds down. And arbitrage is calculated basically on the amount of the funds that are remaining at the current yield rate and compare that to the future in terms of what is, in other words, you're basically, this is tax exempt money that we have and we're sitting on, and technically by the bonds and so forth, we're not able to earn above the yield. Right now, we are earning interest on these, and so I think I provided some information to the board on it. We are earning interest on the 2020 deal as well as the current deal, and so I believe it's slightly over $1 million at this particular point in time. It's been recommended by our financial advisors that we just keep that into an account for now, simply because whether we delay or not, we may have those calculations based upon the 3-year arbitrage amount. And so we need to make sure that we have those, we can't spend those funds, in other words. We have to have them set aside in the event that calculation comes back that we have arbitration to to provide to the IRS, that is, because they are tax exempt bonds. I'm not sure if that responds to your question, but I'll be happy to review the memo if you like.
Well, I guess my question is in the terms of the tax liability, we're earning interest, and I'm going to try to put this in Reader's Digest form. We're earning interest as a result of the board's action at that interest rate that we've locked in on. So we're earning interest, and at some point that interest is tax-free at this point. But if it's not utilized at some point, then we owe the interest back on that in addition to that other component, correct?
That's correct, yes. One thing I wanted to share with the board, you did make a great decision of going into the loan when you did, simply because locking in that interest rate, if we would have waited any longer than what we did on the 2022, we'd be spending nearly $1 million more over the course of the loan by just the change in the interest rate from March till today. So just wanted to share that with the board as well as the public. So you made a great decision making and pulling the trigger on borrowing the funds. Right now they're just sitting in an account earning some interest, and we'll keep record and track. We have an agency through our financial advisor that keeps track of the arbitrage and then lets us know exactly where we stand each and every year as to terms of what potentially we may or may not owe.
Are there any additional questions?
I have 2 things.
Michelle?
So I went back a little ways, pulled some newspapers and whatever else. And I would like somebody to clarify that in 2013, 2014, when we did the middle school, I believe we also did some renovations to James Getty's, specifically in the kitchen area and that wing of the building. And I'm thinking that we did some new HVAC in that building. So I would like to have Josh climb up on the roof, pull the service tags off the units. Let's see when they were manufactured. The other thing that I want to say is about the smart lighting. In the district where I work, we've installed smart lighting in one of the buildings, and I have already had my electrician go into the building and basically disable some of the smart lighting because it stinks. I'm not gonna lie to you, it stinks. Some places it works great, some places it doesn't, but I've had them disable it in a couple places because it doesn't work right. And that's all I have to say.
Jim?
Two questions for you, Josh. Do you know the roofs at James Getty's and Lincoln? Were they put on when those HVAC systems were put on, or were they put on earlier than that? Do you know?
No, they were put on right around the same time. I'm not sure if it was the exact part of the scope of the project at the time, but Lincoln must have been, because Lincoln's roof was in '99. That's when they did the reno there.
Okay.
Getty's was 2004.
So both roofs are between 17 and 20 years old?
Yes.
Yeah, something like
Ish.
that. Yeah. And so those type of roofs don't last much past 20 anyway.
No, yeah. If you get 20 out of it, you're doing
Yeah,
pretty
you're
good without
doing
a bunch of
something.
problems.
The second question is, I know when we updated the lighting at the middle school to LED, we had I don't want to say presentation, but a thing of cost savings from the lights. Putting those LEDs was going to save us X amount of money on electricity. Did we do one for the LED lights we're putting in the rest of the schools?
I cannot answer that question. I don't know, Tim.
Okay. I didn't know if there was a number that came out of that.
Well, the spreadsheet, it has operational and maintenance savings. So in that number, not broken out obviously, but that's a lump sum
But it's
number.
tied in with that.
Yes.
Okay.
Tim, I'll answer your question. It was $68,000 on the LED at the middle school and Lincoln, cost savings whenever that was being presented. And I don't believe you were here, Josh, at that time, but that was a board vote on a $68,000 savings.
Yeah, and I knew that was a saving. I can't remember what that was. I was just wondering if there was, what the savings would be from us going from fluorescent to LED in the schools. I know there's going to be one. I just wanted to know if we had that information.
So Josh, if we were to take out, say we were to eliminate the smart lighting, and just go with a regular LED lighting, what are we looking at work-wise? I mean, what's that going to take to actually go back through this and eliminate that and reconfigure to just a standard LED without that smart lighting?
Well, first and foremost, you need to have, with any lighting system now to meet current code, you need an energy management component to that. That can be as simple as just occupancy sensors via switch or overhead, which is, I guess you could call that a smart system component. As I understand it, can be as simple as that. Or you could go with an Enlighted type, or Enlighted is the manufacturer that we put in at the high school. That has the daylight sensors and so forth. The contract, if we move forward, is a design build contract. So we haven't, or they haven't, Train that is, done any design at this point. All they've done is assess the systems, or Barton Engineering on behalf of Train has done building assessments and provided us through that assessment recommendations for renovations, lighting being one of them. So we have, I'll call it ultimate latitude at this point to pick and choose, value engineer, if you will, and adjust scope as we see necessary, which ultimately will obviously work towards a firm fixed price or lump sum price as we go through the design process and get updated estimates for the work, which will all be developed through the subcontractors that Train is going to use till we hone in on an actual lump sum price. So there's going to be, as there always is with a large job like this, some give and take, and we'll have to make some decisions along the way. For instance, maybe the lighting system.
Okay, no, I appreciate that, and I apologize because I haven't been here the last two meetings, and I kind of hate throwing you on the spot like this at the last minute, but there was another question I heard this evening, and that was in relation to duct work. Do we have any current issues with our duct work, or how energy efficient is the ductwork we have now versus replacing it? Because I know we do have energy and operational savings here, and by utilizing possibly our old ductwork versus what may be out there now, that could change. You know, we're looking at a 20-year energy operational savings of a little over $3 million, and I'd hate to see us put a new unit in, utilize some old ductwork, and then all of a sudden we're down to $1.5 million because we were losing it through our ductwork. So I don't know, could you give us just some quick insight, maybe, like if we do need to replace it, is it possible to utilize it, or?
Sure. So we'll utilize as much as reutilize, meaning we won't demo it at all. We'll just leave it in the interstitial space or above ceiling space, reutilize everything that we can. Now, obviously, if the size of the duct will not provide the airflow necessary to meet current code requirements, then obviously we'll have to demo and replace that. The scope of work at the high school, we saved the majority, meaning we didn't demo and replace the majority of the ductwork. We left the mains in for the most part and the taps there, and then reconnected all the VAVs off of the existing taps and reutilized the existing ductwork. And then we, in order to do that, just recommended, after 20 couple years of being in service, inevitably ductwork's dirty. So we'll clean the duct on these two projects just like we did at the high school.
Okay, thank you. Mr. President, so by taking action on this evening, we're not necessarily locking in a set price, because we still have rooms for savings as this board would see fit if we'd so choose to. We're just simply moving forward with getting this underway, so to speak. Am I correct?
That's my understanding, and addressing, and I think what Josh was doing was addressing some of the questions and concerns that over the countless hours, not only in building and finance, but meeting with Josh and meeting with administration over the last several years as we prepared for this. It's always been my understanding that, and Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, is that we start to do a build design, smart lighting, Wi-Fi, and those type of issues can all be addressed and will be addressed based in the overall scope of the work. It may not be a complete project in terms of ductwork, like Josh explained. That's always been my understanding.
Right. Yeah, I understand. I want to, we had some questions and concerns this evening, and legitimate ones, and stuff that I myself am concerned about. I do not, however, want to inquire an 18% increase in our systems just because we had some questions on other issues there. I just want to make sure that there's still room for modification and savings as we proceed with this, but to simply at least get our equipment locked in so that we're not eating that, whether it be 18 or 20 or whatever the percentage increase is come January 1st. So,
Josh, would that be accurate? I'm going to defer to you.
As far as if we have to act
as far as
tonight?
when you build design, we're going to have some latitude as to the ductwork, to the Wi-Fi, to the other stuff that has been addressed here this evening. That's not locked in stone right now, that we have the flexibility.
we simply, we're going to lock this in so we don't require an increase come January on our equipment, but we still have the flexibility as we see fit in certain areas to where if we don't want to do smart lighting, which you already answered, but other things as well, where we could have some tax savings, or savings to our taxpayers as well.
Yeah, so through the design process, what they'll do is they'll focus on the heating, ventilation, air conditioning component, the electrical component to support the HVAC upgrades, and anything else necessary to support the HVAC. That's primary scope of these projects. And then after that, they'll make their equipment selections. We'll obviously have hard budget numbers for that scope of work, but also concurrent to that design process, there will be other entities within Barton Associates, RLPS, that will be doing design of other portions of the building that we'll also be getting budget estimates on. So kind of two-phase, I guess, to answer your question. We'll design HVAC and supporting infrastructure.
Right.
Get hard estimates for that, and then kind of everything above and beyond that, yes, we will be able to value engineer, if you will, meaning cut back scope, change things as necessary to hit the 33,789. But one thing, and I made it a point last time, and just in the effort, be fully transparent, what we are asking for tonight, as far as action, is action by the board to approve a budget, okay, of $33,789,369. We do not, once we get that approval, we will work with Train as the design builder and their engineer to get as much scope into the project as we can for that budget number. There is no intention then at that point after tonight to come back and do another approval for the project.
Right.
Just to be clear.
On the Train end of things,
No, the entire job.
the entire job?
Yep. So we're asking for approval to move forward for the spend of $33,789,369.
That's including the smart lighting and everything?
That's
Okay.
including all that. Yep.
Okay.
I'm confused. I understand that portion of it, but we may not be going to smart lighting, correct?
Currently, right now, in that budget estimate, it includes a budget number for an enlighted, which is the manufacturer, same manufacturer we put in at the high school, for an enlighted lighting system, smart lighting system, if you will, for both buildings. That's what is carried in that $33,789,369.
I understand that.
Yep.
But we're not locked into that specific line item. Even though it's
No.
budgeted for and the money's available, doesn't mean we have to spend it for that particular path, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you. I was
I was a little confused there.
So, Josh, so we're approving the budget. You're going to get hard numbers, bring the hard numbers back to the board and go, this is the hard number where you're at. And if we didn't want smart lighting, we just take it off, whatever.
No, that's what I'm saying. We're looking for an approval for $33,789,369 to do the entire scope that is budgeted right now, which includes the enlighted system, the Train equipment, the bathroom the ADA bathroom at Getty. That's in the scope. The roofs. If for some reason the budgets come in over, the estimates come in over that budget number, then we'll have to start dialing back and value engineer the scope. Because here's the situation. We have pushed things for good reason. There are a lot of questions. New contract model, new way to procure work. I understand it's not low bid, multi-prime, right? So initially we were looking for an approval about 5-6 weeks ago. So we pushed it till tonight. And basically we need to, this is a go or no go, more or less. So we cannot go past tonight and then be able to get this job in for next summer. Meaning if we have to come back to the board and then deliberate again across multiple meetings, we're not going to, this job is not a viable project for next summer.
If I may. So a member of the public tonight made a statement which kind of resonated with me. Is there anything wrong with any of the existing systems?
Currently, right now, no, there is not. But the intent of these projects, the whole project, roofing, HVAC, is typically, as a district, historically, we have been proactive about renovating our buildings, in particular HVAC, so we don't run into situations where we have an air handler or a chiller or boiler or something that goes down. And unfortunately, if we were to take that approach, things aren't shelf items like they used to be, unfortunately. But I don't have a crystal ball. I mean, as we've discussed in F&F and in prior board meetings, to your point, things aren't failing right now. If we were to wait a year or 2 or 3 and things start to fail, we've got 2 things working against us. One, we've got escalation that, based upon forecast, is inevitable. And also, we don't have equipment, large equipment, like we're going to need to replace boilers, chillers, air handlers. They're 25, 26 weeks out at this point. So it's not like we can just go get a packaged air handler and get it on the roof in a week. What it's going to be like in 3 years, I don't know. But basically, we're being proactive to stay consistent with how the district's handled facility upgrades in the past.
Josh, so, and it's not just Josh, but, so we have this bond, which is at, what was the interest rate for that again? 3% that we refined for? Do you remember?
This particular one was 3.25 yield.
3.25. So right now we're getting this at 3.25. If you pass up on it, not only do you have to pay back the interest that you've earned off of it, so you lose that, you lose the $2 million in ESSER money that we would get hopefully for this project. And then if something does happen in 2 or 3 years, now you might be paying 6 or 8% for that bond and cost you 3 times what it was going to cost us to do it now. We got a bond at an extremely low rate, and if you don't do it now, you're kind of, putting the cart behind the horse. You're going to be paying more for it down the road. It's inevitable. It's going to be done. You might as well do it while it's cheaper and not while it's more expensive. The other question I had for you, Josh, is that smart lighting, is that actually in the high school? Did we put that in the high school?
Yes.
Okay, and how's it working there? Do you have
Good
any
so
issues?
far. Yeah, good so far.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So, Belinda, so on our bond, if this goes past this evening, that's going to, not only are we going to inquire some added cost because of the equipment going up in January, but is that also going to interfere with that bond? Or do we still have time on the bond, unlike we have time on the equipment, or?
It will not interfere with the bond. It's just you're holding off another year, which then you've got to spend down within 2 years to avoid the arbitrage.
So in other words, our backs are
It's a
against
timing.
the wall.
It's
quicker.
just a timing issue. That's really
Okay.
all it is. Yes.
Timing
I
as
just
in-
want to say that somebody apparently has a crystal ball. Josh says he doesn't, but somebody says they have a crystal ball because we're sitting here being told that prices are going up by 18%. So somebody's got a crystal ball.
Well, he and I agree, but
And-
he
and
said
I'm
they were
sitting here
going up. He
going-
doesn't know what they're going to go up. Neither do I. and
Neither do we.
anybody else. But I
No,
understand that, and I know what you're saying, and it's unfortunate to be sitting here in this position. It almost feels like you're stuck in a catch-22, and because we are going to have to do this at some point in time, whether or not it has to be done right now, whether or not it's really what's in the best interest, of this board. I don't have that crystal ball either, unfortunately.
And I think, and actually to the 8%, 18%, I think Josh said the last increase they got was
Correct.
18%. Not that he thought it was going up 18%. He was just evaluating what the last increase was.
I don't like it when somebody tells me you have to act and you have to act right now, because when somebody tells me that, that's when I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. I put the brakes on.
Well, I don't think we have to act. It's up to personal preference. I'm just looking at either paying for it now at a lower price or waiting 2 years and paying double or what we're paying plus half and just wasting more money. That doesn't make any sense to me. Because
Right.
that's asking like you have a crystal ball in your hand knowing what's going to happen in 2 years. And if you're not going to get a bond like we got it 3 years from now for that interest rate, it's not going to happen.
I'm not at all interested in wasting money. I'm just telling you that I don't like it when people tell me that I have to act and I have to act right now. And that's what I'm being told.
Are there any I'm sorry. Timon?
Would it not behoove us to maybe, since there's questions on the smart lighting, is to break that budget out a little further and look at what it's going to cost us instead of $33 million, how much would it be without the smart lighting, how much would it be without, if indeed there's nothing out there from what they said that is in dire need immediately, would it behoove us to take a better look at it and say, hey, let's look at it, here's what it's going to cost us, here's what's gonna cost us with the smart lighting, et cetera, et cetera. Take a look that way.
I think Josh has explained, if I understand correctly, we do have some degree of discretion once we approve the project as time goes along. This isn't happening tomorrow and so on. So I would like to trust our administration to make those prudent moves along the way. Frankly, I think we've discussed it enough, and I'm ready to vote.
I do have a couple more questions. So this one is in regards to the roof. Are the roof and the HVAC project married? Do they need to happen at the same time? And the reason I ask that question is let's say for example, if we move forward, the roofs are fine for right now. Let's just say that. If we move forward with the HVAC portion and get that part engineered and locked in, and we could replace the roofs in 7 years, or do they need to be done at the same time? And the flip side of that is if we say no to the HVAC and we wait for 2 or 3 years, and in the meantime have to do a roof, and then we approve the HVAC when they failed, is the roof going to have to be done again? So are the roof and HVAC, do they have to be done at the same time?
No, they do not need to be done at the same time. What was your second part? Or is that it?
That was it.
Okay, they don't need to be done at the same time.
Any additional questions? Hearing none, roll call. Al?
Yes.
Amy Beth?
No.
Mike?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Timon?
No.
Ryan?
No.
Michelle?
No.
Jeremy?
No.
I vote yes. The motion does not carry. 6.2, use of school facilities. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Question? I'm
I
sorry.
have a question.
It's okay.
So I have the paperwork here for the categories of use. I understand what they are, I get that. I was not at the meeting, so I didn't hear any of the detail work here, but, we're charging for the use of Warrior Field, but we don't charge for any of the use of any of the gymnasiums. Is there a reason for that?
I mean, generally speaking, districts do charge a little bit more for use and wear and tear on turf fields because the replacement of the turf is usually a much greater cost than maintaining some of the other surfaces and some of the other facilities.
Okay, so Gettysburg Midget Football uses Warrior Field. Are there any other groups that use Warrior Field?
Off the top of my head, the only thing I know off the top of my head is the soccer tournaments obviously use the stadium and they pay for the stadium when they use it. If other people are using the stadium, I just don't have that information right here at my fingertips.
Okay, so what groups are using the gymnasiums?
You
I mean,
wanna just-
it's your
you wanna
youth.
Write your questions down. This is just for information, right? Write your
No,
questions
it's
down,
under,
send me an
it's
email,
for
I can
board
get you
action.
information. Well, that's
The policy is under board action and the guideline is under information.
Okay. So, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out, like, I understand there's the turf, and there's wear and tear in the turf, I get that. Is the money that we're getting from the rentals for the turf field, is that going into a special fund to replace the turf? I mean, the turf's at 7 years. It's 7 years old now.
Yeah, all the fees that we get for facility use go back into the general fund.
Okay, so, but I can email you and ask you for like who uses these different facilities, because I'm looking at it going, listen, if you're gonna charge midget football, we should be charging everybody. I'm kind of an all or nothing kind of person. That's where I'm at.
Right, and we had this whole discussion at the policy meeting, on that whole discussion.
Okay. And again, I wasn't there, I apologize. Had my granddaughter, so.
Are there any questions on the policy? Hearing none, roll call. Amy Beth.
Yes?
Michelle.
Yes.
Jeremy.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Tim.
Yes.
Ryan.
Yes.
Timon.
Yes.
Michelle. Oh, I know, I have it written wrong. Al.
Yes.
That's twice, Al. You're right beside me, and I vote yes. Informational item 7.1.
Both those informational items were discussed at policy 7.1 is just to make sure that we're complying with federal regulations. 7.2 are the administrative guidelines for the policy that was just approved.
Board committee reports. Amy Beth.
Thank you very much. I'd like to give my legislative report. I'd like to highlight some of the proposed bills in both the House and Senate. I mentioned these bills to invoke and inspire you all to get involved, whether you support or oppose their mention. All of the below bills will impact our district if implemented. The following bills are scheduled to be considered from the Senate Education Committee this week. Senate Bill 139, whose primary sponsor is Senator Mastriano, which is the recognition of 9/11. This bill would provide a moment of silence for September 11th. Senate Bill 1288, also with the prime sponsor of Mastriano, which was classroom safety. The proposed bill would allow school employees to provide documentation that would allow the employee to carry a firearm within the school. Tomorrow, September 20th, House Bill 2813 will be introduced with the Parental Bill of Rights legislation. Lawmakers and students will rally for this landmark bill at the Capitol in the Rotunda in Harrisburg. All are welcome to join. The House Education Committee will be holding a non-voting meeting on September 21st to hear the comments of the PIAA, which will be broadcasting high school sports. This is essentially to live stream the games. The following bills are in their second and third consideration in the House. House Bill 1254, which was introduced by DeRosso, in-person instruction. The bill would encourage districts to provide the person instruction for an option of a grant program, if not instructional, within the classroom. House Bill 122, introduced by Senator Kaufman. School board behavior health assistance provided from school and mental health services is a pilot grant program. House Bill 2023, Senate Coffer, provides mental health awareness education. Clearly, both are extremely important, so please keep your eye on them as I detail further in the upcoming months. To conclude, I would like to mention to my fellow board members that they are responsible for required school board training. For senior board members, we are required to fulfill 3 hours of training, and for new board members, you are required to complete 5 hours of training. I myself will be adding an advanced legislative liaison training course that will be at the end of the month. Thank you very much.
Amy Beth, I have one follow-up, and I know it's been rather busy and hectic in the campaign trail, but when you get an opportunity to get it back to us on what bills have been introduced and what our legislative people that represent us are doing about property tax reform and how they're taking the monkey off the back of the school districts across the state, I'd love to hear what they've done or haven't done. When you have, I know they're busy. I understand that. When you have a moment, please.
Thank you.
And Amy, just real quick, if you could find out if Governor Wolf is if the state is helping pay for the free breakfast program they're doing, or if we're just,
I
each
did-
district's eating that.
I did get information on that. Can update you privately if you'd like, but I can also detail at the next meeting. There's a lot of movement with that, and if you give me just a few minutes to look that up, I'd love to give the information to you.
Thank you.
Tim, do you have anything for?
No, I think we have a Building and Finance Committee on Thursday, I believe it is. This Thursday's the date? And, or is it following Thursday?
It's October next.
October.
Okay.
Mike?
Yeah, the policy committee will convene on October 11th at 4 PM in the administration building.
Program reports?
None this evening.
Well, that brings us to the calendar of events. Our next board meeting will be October 3rd and 7 o'clock here in this room. May I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Wait a minute.
Oh.
Do we need a motion to have the project estimates broken down before the next meeting, so we can look at it again?
I'm going to have to check with the administration, and because I believe the timeline at this point is with the vote tonight, has eliminated that, and that they would be looking at a following year project.
We probably have a year now.
A year, or whatever is my understanding. So Tim and I think it's going to stay on hold at this point, is my understanding. Josh, is that correct?
Yeah, it's not, if we don't vote, yes, it's dead for next summer.
And the only thing would change is we have a failure between now and when it comes up before the board again, correct?
Yeah, it'd just be an individual unit replacement at that point.
Okay, yeah, so Tim, and it's on hold right now. I'm sorry?
We're not going to make this summer.
Yeah, there was a drop deadline in terms of ordering supplies and getting stuff in, and I'll talk to you after the meeting. May I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Motion.
Motion.
We stand adjourned. Thank you. I'm going to give that to him. You're going to give that to him back there. All right.